Alrighty, hi. So we have entered our second week of studying Satya, which is truthfulness. Last week we observed in ourselves the difference between not being nice and being real, if you remember that. So this week we're going to explore the difference between self-expression and self-indulgence. Um, it's really important that we honestly express who we are as ourselves, and be our authentic selves in the world. And when I was reading about this today, um, one of the things that kept popping up for me would be people who may have hidden their sexual orientation for years because it wasn't safe or whatnot. But the more people that became honest, speaking their truth about it, the more it just became accepted and natural in society. So, on a smaller level, being who we really are as opposed to who we think we should act like, or um, how other people have taught us that we should behave like being the good student, being the perfect mother who cooks a home cooked meal every day, even if you hate cooking meals every day. Um, so, Deborah Dell, who wrote the book, I wanted to read you exactly what she said on this. There's a couple of quotes in here that were so good I couldn't share them. Deb says, "We are here on this earth to self-express in a way no one else ever has or ever could. We feel this urge wanting to stand up in front of the world and say, 'I'm here.'" And we so often allow our how we express ourselves in the world to be dominated by the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. And that can be, we can get should on. I like that term, should on. Don't should on your friends. We can get should on by ourselves and how we do our self talk, or we can get should on by the world when we're told that we should go to college. We should get married, whether or not we ever want to get married. We should have children, whether or not we don't. These are all ways that we're told what to do, even if maybe we, in our core, know we don't want that or don't want to be that way. So we try to fit in. Um, and the interesting thing about this is that when we suppress our own true self expression. Instead, we have a tendency then to become self indulgent. Um, and by doing this, um, we misdirect our energy and we settle for less than what we're capable of doing in our lives. We don't realize our full potential. Um, And in our society, it can be extra hard too, just because of how screwed up our healthcare system is. Because some people are forced to be doing things that are completely against their beliefs or their lives because they need to have health insurance. Whereas if people could do their true work and truly express themselves, but not worry about that, they would be happier in the world. Um, when we misdirect this energy and it becomes self-indulgence or overindulgence, this is when we say things like people giving themselves permission. I'm not talking about myself, giving themselves permission to lay in bed for like 2 hours in the morning, looking at their phone and reading a book. Not that that's okay, not okay sometimes, but that really can be one of my types of self-indulgence. When I am bogged down by not truly expressing myself, it becomes a way of escaping. But we see this also manifest in people in overeating. People start like, this tastes really good, and instead of having one helping, they'll have two helpings and then maybe a little bit more. So they fill themselves up above and beyond. But part of that is a way to numb themselves because they aren't really expressing who they are in the world. That's the cause of people drinking and over drinking, drinking regularly. It is a way of it becomes a way of being self-indulgent because we're not truly expressing ourselves in the world. Deb goes on to say, living the life that cries to be lived from the depths of our being frees up a lot of energy and vitality. On the other hand, suppressing that life for whatever reason takes a lot of life energy just in the managing of the pretending. When we choose the safety of belonging over the inner need to grow, we also dull ourselves. So take that to heart, the truth of how you express yourselves in the world, the truth of who you really are. And if you've forgotten who you wanted to be, consider trying to find that person again. Try to remember who you were before the world told you that you should be and reconnect with that person. The little task for this week, the experiment, if you want to try it, is it says to spend this week in self-expression. Make movements towards the external world with your internal hopes and dreams. Act on life-giving opportunities despite the consequences. Observe how others react. If you find yourself in self-indulgence, ask yourself, what am I not expressing? So I would encourage you to give that a little try this week, see how that feels, see how that helps. And with that, we can come down onto the mats and get ready for our practice. So if you would please lie long in your mat. Get really comfortable in your body. Do a little scan from the top of your head down, down, down to the soles of your feet. Notice any place that might be a bit tighter. See if you can do any small adjustment to make yourself more comfortable. Then take a nice, slow breath, starting in the belly, gliding up, expanding wide in that lower rib cage, and up into that upper rib cage. Taking a small pause, and then releasing that breath, starting from the top, all the way down to the belly. This long, slow, wide breath. If you're able to, make this exhalation slightly longer than the inhalation. Once again, just allow yourself to scan from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, noticing any shifts in your body that have come about just by breathing deeply with awareness. And then I'm going to invite you to 1 foot at a time. Bring your feet onto the mat with the knees up in the air. In easy resting pose. For now, noticing if the chin is slightly lower than the forehead. If it's not, just drop it down a little bit just for this pose. Are your feet hip width apart with the knees not falling apart nor falling together? Is the weight evenly distributed between the heels and the balls of the feet? And in this position, if you would please, start with slow, gentle, easy arches and flats. Paying attention to the truth in your body today. Not trying to force your body to go into that arch deeper than it wants to go, nor flattening further. But instead listening to what the body is asking for. And moving within those limits. And after a few rounds, allow those shoulders to come into play. So that in the arch, those shoulders float up to the sky over the head. In the flatten, allowing the shoulders to float up to the sky over the head. And in the arch, letting the backs of the shoulders to press down onto the floor. So as you arch and the shoulders come down, that arch radiates up the whole length of the spine. And as you flatten, those shoulders float up towards the sky above, as the hips gently roll up off the ground. And then let's just switch this up a little bit more. And on your next arch, as you go into it, press that left hip and that right shoulder down into the ground, creating more of a diagonal arch in the body. And as you flatten, allow the front of that shoulder, the right shoulder, and the top of that left hip to come up towards the sky. So you feel a little bit of flattening between the hip and the shoulder. And repeat that diagonal movement once again. Back of the left hip presses down, back of the right shoulder presses down, creating an arch between those 2 points. And then shifting our weight, that right shoulder and left hip float up towards the sky above. And release. Let's do the other side 2 times, starting with the left shoulder and that right hip pressing down, creating an arch between those 2 points of the body. Slow release. And floating that left shoulder up and the right hip up into the air. Releasing. And repeating. Now we'll go back to our mini arches and curls, allowing the shoulders to float up when we flatten the back, flattening motion, and allowing the shoulders to press down as we go into the arch. But if you're able to go a little bit deeper, if your body is asking for it, listen to what your body is asking. Interlace those fingers and place them behind the head so that as you go into the arch, that head, back of that head presses down into the hands. And you will feel the backs of the shoulders making more contact with the earth below. Body arches. And as we flatten and hips roll away from the mat, that head and the elbows and a little bit of those shoulders float up off the ground, making a larger C curve in the front of the body. Only lifting up again as far as your body wants to move. Listen to the truth of the body. Honestly, there can be a lot more work in lifting the head just an inch or two. Trying to hold it there with great control. Going up tall. And then let's release from that. Now, if your hands were not behind your head, because that was too high load today, I would like you then just to focus on your right shoulder. If you need to look, I'm demonstrating, but if you want to do it, this is what we're going to do next, a diagonal arch and curl. You can just lift that right shoulder up and maybe bring the head up with it for the motion. If you can, otherwise, bring the hand behind the head, do so. When we lift, we're going to allow that elbow and shoulder and head to come up and slight diagonal across the body towards that left leg. Now with that left leg, the lightest load would be to push through that left foot and float that left hip up off the ground with the left hand on the front of the left thigh. If you're able to go a little deeper, lift that left foot off the ground with the hand at the back of the left thigh and hang out there and see how that feels. Maybe that'll be just enough. If your body's craving more, take that whole hand and put it on the front of the shin, which brings that knee in a little bit tighter. So once you find the perfect way for your leg to be and your hand to be with it, let's go ahead and start the movement. So going into an arch, we're going to press down through the back of the left hip and the right shoulder. And to do the diagonal arch, we'll start flattening the back in that diagonal, lifting that head and shoulder and elbow off the ground, bringing them across the body in the direction of the knee that's coming towards it. And then very, very slowly releasing And going back into that arch. Just do this a couple of times. And then release that left foot down to the ground, release the right hand. Let's just go ahead and slide those legs long for a moment. Just notice how the body's laying. Do that soma scan again. See if you can notice any shifts. And then let's bring our feet back up into easy resting pose. Remembering that our sides of the body aren't necessarily even. So again, check in with the body and ask what it needs. Do we want to just move that left shoulder up and across the body? Maybe lift the head off the ground with it a little bit. Or take that left hand and bring it behind the head. Again, check the position for the right leg. Remember that you can just place the hand on the front of the thigh and press through the foot. Kind of lift the hip that way for the flatten. Pressing down in the back of it to go into the arch. Or maybe your body wants to lift the foot off the ground with the hand behind the thigh. Or maybe even with the hand on the front of the shin. Just find the perfect spot. And then we'll begin with the arch again before we curl across the body. I'm just going to let you work on this on your own for a bit. Going into a curl in the diagonal and an arch. And then let's release from this. Once again, allow our legs to grow long. Check in with how our body's doing. So bringing your right knee up, left knee up, right leg long. I'm just going to have you push through that left foot and down on the right hip to roll your body over. And then come along and push yourself up for a moment. And grab your myofascial ball. That's what we're going to use next. We are going to spend a few minutes moving through different zones on the front of the body. We're going to go through 3 places. So we want to first find that space below our rib cage, but not right on the xiphoid process. That's that little bone that's at the bottom of the sternum in the center of the chest. Sometimes if people press on there too hard, it can make them feel nauseous a little bit. So we want to start a little bit lower below the rib cage, right about there. So I want you to try to find the spot. We're going to work down towards the belly button. So I'm going to ask you to find a little spot right there. Now you can lie long down like that, but that's a lot more sensation. Being up like this on your arms a little bit is actually gentler. So pick which one you want to be in for this. We're going to hold each of these spots for 1.5 minutes. And this time what I'm going to do is just let my phone chime. So when you hear that chiming sound on my phone, it'll pause the music for a moment. Just go ahead and move that ball down about an inch or so, maybe a little more, so that by the third time, you're just above the belly button. All right? So just get into that perfect place. And just allow your fascia to release, relax. This will be our last time for repositioning that ball. And then go ahead and sink back into the position. And then let's take that ball out from underneath our bellies. Just for a moment, bring our heads down onto the backs of our hands in a crocodile. Take a few long, deep breaths into the upper part of the back of the rib cage. All right, now we're going to next do a modified seal. And so for that, we're just going to actually come up onto our forearms and our elbows, just like I am right here. Now, if you prefer, if that's too high, you can actually adjust and bring your arms further forward. You are also welcome to take a little pillow, and that might make it gentler on your body. So you can bring it up underneath your elbows like this, or even have it be, this isn't a fluffy one, but have it be a support underneath the armpits a little bit coming down. So just spend a moment finding your perfect seal position and get into that. And we're going to hold this for 3 minutes. Now, if it becomes to the point where you feel that you need to get out of this position, again, if you could come down into crocodile, breathing into your back of your body, or if you need to break from being on your belly, then just roll over onto your back as gently as possible, letting one leg grow long if you can, one knee in the air to push yourself over, and then bring your legs up into easy resting pose or yin resting pose with the knees gently touching together in the center. All right? So let's just get in our positions. And begin. We have a minute left. and then allowing yourself to release from this position. I would encourage you to just allow yourself to either come back down into crocodile or roll onto your side and take a pause for a moment. And then roll all the way over onto your back, nice and long. Let your legs be long. Noticing any difference in your body from when you first came onto the mat. Now, we're going to work on the back lift, and that will be on your belly. And if you remember how to do this pose and you've got it down well, you can continue to lie here and relax for a moment. But if you would like to watch me demonstrate it and demonstrate different levels of it, I would invite you then to come up into a seated position. And again, if you can, bring that left foot onto the ground with the knee in the air and press through the foot in the heel and tip the pelvis and the hips over. Come on up. Now, so we're going to be on our bellies for the significant amount of time. And honestly, for me, it's a lot of time on my stomach. It can feel like it's smushing my breasts. And so for me, it's really important if I'm going to be doing this for 5 minutes or more, like we're going to do today, to be really careful to prop myself properly. So if you know now that you can't be on your belly that long, even with props, I want to show you a way that you can have access to this position. And I actually really like it. And it's really nice if you need to do it and there's no floor space, if you want to do a little release like this. So if you do not want to be on your belly, you can come up to a wall. It doesn't have to be a ladder. You can come up to the wall. And you want to get close to the wall. And you would actually put your hand up here and turn your head on your cheek to face your elbow. All right? And so as we would, when I'm cueing you to lift your elbow in this position, you would bring your elbow up this way and then back down towards the wall. If the wall was there, your elbow would be touching the wall. And then when I talk about allowing the opposite leg to float, you'll actually do more balancing, lifting that way. When we lift the head and the hand and the cheek off the floor, we'll come off the wall like that. And we put it all together. It'll look more like that off the wall. Now, if you can't bring your shoulder up like this, another way to access it would be to, or even laying on the ground, would be to have your elbow down here instead, okay? Or even to have your hands like this, you can do it that way, okay? And then you would work more with lifting the shoulder back and forth like that, okay? Now, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways on the floor. If you have, when you grab a pillow or 2 blankets or whatnot, this is just a big yoga bolster, okay? It's really hard and firm, and it's not my favorite thing, but it's really useful sometimes, and this is one of the things it's useful for. So the back lift, if we remember from discussions a long time ago, this is one of the main pieces of the cat stretch to do for that green light position. And that green light position is where you're more arched in the back and you're coming out like this. It's what happens when you put on heels of any form, okay? But it's it's not usually thought of for when you're in that red light position with the shoulders coming forward and the head coming down or back like that. But it can be really good for that. And that's when propping up higher helps. So if you feel that you need that, you might want to prop 2 or 3 blankets and then lay a pillow on top of it. So I'm going to let you see what this looks like on, oh wait, I should do it this way for you, on a bolster, if you're propped up higher, okay? Now, one way of doing it, if you notice my knees are around the bolster, it's coming through my knees a bit. One way of doing this is to lay directly on top of the bolster and maybe even put a little pillow down here below. But I want you to notice how my whole body collapses over it. It's really nice because on a certain way, I'm deeper into that red light position. My whole body is able to fall over it. So if you have that in your body, this will actually feel really good, but it emphasizes that. When you do it in this position, though, it actually gives you a little bit more freedom because it'll help you remember what it's like to really lift up out of that position and come back in. The movement of the legs is going to look a little different because you notice my leg is bent here instead of being straight, but that's okay because when you go to lift the leg, it's going to straighten out, all right? So that's one level of doing it. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, one more thing about that is, again, if it's constricting in the chest, you can just bring your breast forward in front of that, but then you most likely will really want to have some little bit of prop in here. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't even be able to touch the floor, which is really not very comfortable. If you need to come out of this position for a bit and take a break, you can always come back like this into a child's pose on there or sit on here. Okay? Now, the next way of approaching this is to just gently prop a little bit in the front of the body. And this is what I'm going to end up doing for myself today, since we're going to spend some time here. Again, you can lay directly on top of your blankets across the torso. Notice that my legs are flatter here. Or, like I'm going to do it, I'm going to have my chest come off a little bit in the front, gives me a little more room to lie in this position. The third way to do this is to just come flat down on the floor. Like that. So find the perfect way for your body to be supported, whether you want to be against the wall, you want to be propped higher, or you want a little bit of a prop, or nothing at all. So I'm going to ask you to find that first in your body. Then the other thing is, when you're like this, I talked about it a little bit when I was on the ladder, but you can see better if I'm facing forward. If having your hand underneath your cheek or your cheekbone or your temple is too intense, the other option is to not have your neck turned for so long and your hands together like this. So when I would cue to lift a certain elbow, it would look like that instead. And when I suggest that you bring the elbow and the hand and the head up, you can just come up like this without turning the neck. And if you're able to turn the neck, that's great. Last bit, the way it is originally taught, the arm lies long down along the side of the body. So it would look like that. But if that is, if the truth of your body is that that is too much, please feel free to bring that arm up in whatever place it wants to hang out and feel good. And again, remember, the elbows don't have to be up like this. You can figure out a way to modify it so that elbow comes down a little bit further and maybe lifts in a different position, or you just work on lifting the shoulder up and down. All right, so many options. I hope you kind of played with it and found a way that suited you. All right. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to cue it for the complete expression of the pose. I want you to explore it in the way that you found was best for you. The cues should still mostly fit. So let's begin by bringing the left arm long or allow it to hang out wherever it wants to. Bring the fingers of the right hand either underneath the right cheek or underneath the right temple. Legs are nice and long. Draw the attention to the right elbow. And allow that right elbow to just float up off the ground an inch. And then slowly, slowly bring it back down to the ground. Go ahead and keep allowing that elbow to come up just a little bit further. And release back down. I'm going to ask you to pay attention to breathing. Not how and when to breathe, but to make sure that you keep breathing and make sure that you completely release those muscles between each movement. This whole piece takes a different type of movement in our body. So we try to almost brace so that we have less work to do next time. So if you find that you're bracing, your body's doing a little bit of a cheat to make it easier, I'm going to ask you to take a breath in between each movement because then your body will have to relax out of it. Okay? You just go up and down with that elbow. Or the front of the shoulder if your elbow is not up. Releasing completely in between. Now at any point, if you just need to relax your neck, go ahead and release the head and maybe turn it towards so that you're facing the left. Gentle movement back and forth. We're going to bring our attention down to our legs now. Now, if you're propped up and at any point in the time it really starts to bother you, you can also feel free to just adjust yourself and remove that prop. Or again, if laying there is starting to bother you and you feel you need to be propped, go ahead and put one under. All right? Now, I want you to take that right leg and press it down. Make it a little bit longer, like you're trying to stretch it out to the back wall and engage it a little bit so it's touching, it's making a little more contact with the floor, a little steadier. Take that left leg now and make it long and strong. And then float that left foot up off the ground just 2 or 3 inches. No more. And then bring it back down to the earth. And repeat. So listen to what your body is telling you here. If your foot is wobbling and your whole leg is wobbling, it's hopping around with little jig-jags, you're going high enough. But if you're smooth and steady, go ahead and allow your leg to float up higher. Find that place where you've reached the limit for your body, you're not forcing it, and you have control. All right. Let's come back up to the right elbow. This time we're going to float that elbow and the hand and the head off the ground. Just a few inches. Lifting up, pausing, and coming back down. Allowing our breath to allow our body to relax. And then repeat. Now, we're going to put this together. We're going to engage that right leg so it's strong to support the body. And then we're going to lift that right elbow, right hand, and the head, and the left leg at the same time, making a diagonal curl across the back of our body, or diagonal. So notice how that feels to have that movement between these two diagonal points. Allow yourself to go up and down. Remembering to relax completely in between. Now release the head, the neck, the left arm, the right arm. Rock your body back and forth. Bring your forehead to the back of your wrists. Maybe roll that head and neck around a bit. And then let's repeat on the other side. Remembering again that just because we have two shoulders and two elbows, they don't work in the same way in our bodies. So maybe your right arm can be long on this side where it couldn't on the other, or maybe it needs to be up hanging out at the top of the head. Maybe your neck couldn't turn to the right before, but it can to the left. Just let your body be the way it needs to be. Back of the fingers underneath the cheek or the tempo. And let's start by just lifting that elbow an inch, bringing it down, relaxing those muscles. And repeating, lifting a little bit higher. Just move it up and down a few times, but making sure you have control of the movement. If you're shivering, quivering with that elbow, don't go so far. All right. Again, if you need to release that neck, go ahead, roll it. Okay, we're going to come back down to the legs. Left leg is nice and long and firmly in the ground to give support to the body. And lengthening and making straight the right leg. Allow it to come up off the ground 2 or 3 inches. And then gently come back down. And repeat, just coming in and out. You can increase so long as it's not all wobbly. You find that perfect spot where you'd be pushing it too hard to go any further. We want to just find that edge.
Again, releasing all the muscles in between. We're coming back up to the upper part of the body. Let's go ahead and lift the head and the hand and the elbow so they can all float up together. Slowly, with ease, float back down. Just moving in and out of here. Remembering to fully release the muscles in between each movement so that you're doing the work instead of having part of it done for you already. And then putting it all together, let's float that right leg up and that left elbow, left hand and head. Noticing if maybe you have less range of motion this time or more range of motion. Really relaxing in between. And then release from this. Come back into that crocodile for a bit. I'm going to ask you to push through your hands and come back into child's pose for a moment. If you've got a pillow or something there, feel free to come down on top of it. Maybe the hands behind or in front, however they want to be. And then removing that prop, we're going to come back down onto the mat. Remember, we did that modified seal before. And this time, we're going to bring our hands underneath the front of our shoulders. So our forehead comes back down onto the ground and the legs are long behind. Keeping our neck in alignment so that our chin always stays tucked. We don't want to actually, it doesn't need to be tucked tight, but we don't want to overextend our neck. We're going to push through the hands, listening to what our body's asking for, and come up into a very small, gentle cobra, finding your limit. You can force yourself to go farther. That would be hurting your body. And this is an exploration of connecting with the messages coming from our body. It's going in and out of this gentle cobra, pausing when you're upright to hold it for a bit. And coming back out. Allow yourself to roll over onto your back for a moment. Maybe roll your back out a bit. Do a soma scan again from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, noticing any differences. And once again, taking care of your body, come around and over and up into a seated position. We're going to work with our Kali Mudra for just a moment, remembering that the Kali Mudra allows you to, empowers you to stand in your truth, cultivate courage, and build inner strength. I actually was talking with a friend on Zoom this week, and I was telling her, speaking something to her that was a very powerful truth for me, and without even thinking of it, I found my hands in that position. So if you need a reminder of what that position is, You'll just want to cross your fingers together. Take your pointer fingers and bring them together in a steeple. You can keep the hands up in front of your body in a prayer position or have them pointing out, whichever works the best for you. And just going to quietly say, repeat to yourself, either Sat Nam or its English equivalent, my name is truth. And then releasing your hands. I invite you to come back down onto the mat for the final relaxation. Again, you can have your legs nice and long and propped up on a blanket, or you can have your feet on the floor with the knees in the air in constructive resting pose. Constructive resting pose gives you an opportunity to get a little bit more of a psoas release on the body, and it gives you a little energy for the evening, but maybe you're really craving just being nice and long and cozy. So go ahead and pick which way you want to be in your body. Settle into that. If your legs are long, please bring your right knee up with the right foot on the ground. And if you're in constructive resting pose, bring your left leg long, leaving that right knee up. And I would ask you just to roll over, curled up on your side, and lie there for a bit. Please bring yourself back upright into a seated position again. Nice and comfortable. 2 minutes of seated meditation, the loving kindness meditation. I'll repeat the words 3 times. Let my words be your words, and then you can continue on your own. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease of heart. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease of heart. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease of heart. Releasing from this. May all beings find happiness. May all be free of disease. May all see what is auspicious, and may no one suffer. May you be at peace. May your heart remain open. May you awaken to the light of your own true nature. May you be healed, and may you be a source of healing for all beings. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you for being here to practice today.